Welcome to Historical Reasons. We bring you amazing stories from history. Subscribe and enjoy the video. 60 million people were displaced during World War II. The Second World War forced millions of people to leave their homes and wander across countries. Families were split apart, carrying only what they could hold in their hands. Refugee camps were overcrowded, with hunger and disease spreading fast. It became one of the biggest human displacements in history, and many never returned home again. Dr. Janusz Korczak. Janusz Korczak was a doctor and educator who dedicated his life to children. When the Nazis ordered the deportation of 200 Jewish orphans, he was given a chance to save himself but refused to leave them. He walked with the children to Treblinka, holding their hands and comforting them until the very end. His courage became a lasting symbol of loyalty and love. A 1942 photograph in occupied Ukraine. A haunting photograph was taken of a Nazi soldier pointing his rifle at a mother who tried to shield her child. Behind that single image was the horror of the Einsatzgruppen, Nazi killing squads that executed thousands of civilians in fields and forests. It captured the fear and desperation that countless families faced before being shot. Hitler's dirty dozen. The Nazis formed units from criminals, murderers, rapists, and psychopaths who were given power to kill without limits. These men carried out brutal executions of civilians and Soviet prisoners in occupied lands. They burned villages, tortured victims, and left terror wherever they passed. Known as Hitler's Dirty Dozen, they represented the darkest side of human cruelty. Lepa Radić. Lepa Radić was just 17 years old when she joined the resistance against Nazi occupation in Yugoslavia. Captured during a battle, she was sentenced to death. As she stood on the gallows, the Nazis offered her freedom if she betrayed her comrades. She refused, shouting for others to keep fighting. Her bravery made her a legend of youth and courage. WITOLD. Witold Pilecki, a Polish officer, did something unthinkable. He volunteered to be arrested and sent to Auschwitz. Inside the camp, he organized a secret resistance group and reported to the outside world about the atrocities. After escaping, he continued to fight for freedom. Sadly, after the war, he was executed by communist rulers, silencing a true hero. Alfred Czech was only 12 years old when he helped carry wounded German soldiers from the battlefield. For his bravery, he was awarded the Iron Cross, but his short life was caught in the storm of war. Soon after, he was captured by Soviet troops and shot. His story shows how even children were swallowed by the violence of World War II. Kristine Skarbek, also known as Christina, was a Polish spy working for Britain. She carried out daring missions, saved many prisoners, and used her courage to outsmart the enemy. But after the war, her sacrifices were forgotten. She died alone and poor in London, a reminder of how many heroes never received recognition for their service. At Auschwitz, newcomers were selected when trains arrived at Auschwitz. Families were lined up before Nazi officers. Young men and women were sent to work, while children, the elderly, and the weak were sent to gas chambers. Mothers were often separated from their children in seconds. These selections destroyed countless families and left a deep scar in history. The 1937 Nanjing Massacre in China. Japanese troops invaded the city of Nanjing in 1937 for 6 weeks. Civilians faced unspeakable horrors: mass killings, rapes, and torture. Over 200,000 people were slaughtered, some buried alive. The massacre shocked the world and showed how brutal warfare could destroy an entire city and its people. In 1944, Auschwitz-Birkenau selections. At Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest death camp, most women, children, and elderly were sent directly to their deaths. Gas chambers operated daily, killing thousands at a time. Smoke from crematoria filled the air, and survivors lived in constant fear. Over 1 million Jews were murdered there, making it a place of unmatched horror. Czesława Kwoka was a 14-year-old Catholic girl deported to Auschwitz with her mother. She was beaten by guards, then injected with poison that ended her life. Her identity photo, showing bruises and fear in her eyes, survived the war. It became a haunting reminder of the children who suffered and died in the camps. Roger Godfrin, the village of Oradour-sur-Glane in France, faced tragedy in 1944 when Nazis massacred 643 civilians. Women and children were locked in a church and burned alive. Only one child, Roger Godfrin, survived by hiding and escaping. His story became a symbol of survival from one of the most shocking massacres in Europe. A Soviet veteran in 1966, decades after the war. In 1966, a Soviet veteran with no legs bowed before the eternal flame in Moscow. His salute honored the 14 million Soviet soldiers who died in World War II. The powerful image reminded the world of sacrifice, pain, and the human cost of defending a homeland. Dam Square Massacre in 1945. On May 7, 1945, people in Amsterdam gathered to celebrate Germany's surrender. But suddenly, German sailors opened fire on the crowd from a nearby building. Chaos broke out as civilians ran for their lives. Dozens were killed just as peace was supposed to return. American doctors treated enemies. War created deep hatred. Yet American doctors and medics still treated wounded enemy soldiers. Even SS members received care, proving that compassion can survive even on the battlefield. These acts of kindness stood in sharp contrast to the brutality of war. Prisoners in wartime camps run by Nazis, Soviets, and Japanese armies were places of suffering. Prisoners starved, worked in terrible conditions, and battled disease. Death rates were extremely high, and many captives never made it home. Survivors carried lifelong scars from what they endured. Kazimierza Mika in 1939, after a German air raid. In Warsaw, a 12-year-old girl named Kazimierza Mika was photographed crying beside her sister's lifeless body. The image captured the innocence destroyed by war and became a symbol of the suffering of children. British children with gas masks in 1941. Britain feared chemical attacks. Children were trained to wear gas masks, often practicing in schools and playgrounds. The sight of children with masks became a dark reminder of the dangers hanging over Europe. Hiroshima in 1945. On August 6, 1945, the United States dropped the first atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. In seconds, the city was destroyed, with over 140,000 people killed by the blast, heat, and radiation. Survivors, known as hibakusha, carried terrible scars and sickness for the rest of their lives. Hiroshima became a warning of the destructive power of nuclear weapons. Comfort women during the war. Japan forced between 50,000 and 200,000 Asian women into military brothels. They were called comfort women, but in truth they lived as prisoners, suffering daily abuse. Even decades later, many survivors struggled for recognition and justice for what they endured. Shoichi Yokoi. Shoichi Yoko, a Japanese soldier, hid in the jungles of Guam for 28 years after World War II ended. He believed the war was still going on and refused to surrender. When finally discovered in 1972, he returned to Japan as a symbol of loyalty, but also of the madness of endless war. The Pearl Harbor attack on December 7, 1941, Japanese planes attacked the US naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Over 2,400 Americans were killed and battleships were sunk in the surprise strike. The attack shocked the nation and led the United States to enter World War II the very next day. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like to support our work and share your thoughts in the comments.